Yes, I mean, not everybody's in favour. And we're going to hear from Festus in a moment, but, you know, he's a former police and crime commissioner, an endangered species, of course.
Well, yeah,
extinct now.
He's just crept into the studio. Festus Akinbusoye, former police and crime commissioner of Bedfordshire Police. Really good to have you with us. As Martin was just talking us through some of the headlines from these announcements, as I said, there's been a bit of a mixed reception. What's your overall thought, first of all, about the merging of police forces? As Martin says, bigger isn't necessarily better, and there's this talk about streamlining to promote better cohesion.
So there are a couple of different issues here. There is the streamlining of things like procurement and IT and other backroom capabilities in policing. I think that is necessary. I mean, we don't have to have 43 different ways of buying a police helmet, for goodness sake. Right, there's no need for that. I mean, you could have one police force spending £50 on a helmet, another one spending £100 on it. That is not necessary. I totally get the necessity of the centralisation of this. But where I draw the line is that you cannot regionalise local policing. That's an oxymoron in itself. Yeah. You know, you can't regionalise local policing.
Yeah, the communities want to be closer to the police force.
Absolutely, and where this has been tried in Police Scotland, where they amalgamated, I think, about 10 or 11 police forces. Complete disaster. They've closed down about 100 police stations, and they're about 1,000 police officers short of where they were. In the Metropolitan Police, where they created these bigger operational command units rather than the borough command structures, even the Casey Review criticised the Met because of the implications this has had. So bigger is not better.
Somebody told me today that in those 43 forces that we have in England and Wales at the moment, there were something like 100 different sorts of mobile phones that were being procured amongst those forces. I mean, that sounds rather ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I think this has been quite difficult to merge is because there is no statutory requirement for police forces to share. So I chaired the Eastern Regional Special Operations Unit, which is made up of 7 police force areas, the largest one in the country, actually. But 1 or 2 police forces in that region could opt out of collaboration on certain things. However, so my life as chair would have been a lot easier if I could say to a chief constable, I know you don't want to do this, but by law, we've got to do this together.
We've got to work together. It's interesting, all of this investigation, the Home Secretary bringing out these plans, have we got a sense of how much frontline officers and how much the public has consulted? Because we hear a lot from the government telling us what the public want, but has there been collaboration? Because, you know, they're 2 key stakeholders here, aren't they, frontline officers and the public?
I mean, as far as I know, the public hasn't been consulted directly. I'm sure there's a lot of intelligence that those who've been advising the Home Secretary have fed back from their experience and their intelligence of dealing with the public. But you talked about police officers as well. The Superintendents Association has been quite bitter in its condemnation of the lack of consultation with them, and they are the most senior operational officers who say that they're the people who will have to deliver these changes.
I mean, what I found quite staggering about this, if I'm honest with you, is the complete disregard for what we know the public want from policing. A complete disregard for that. And the people who drafted this...
The Home Secretary would argue she tackled things like shoplifting, mobile phone theft, the crimes that the police are criticised for not tackling. She talked a lot about the neighbourhood policing. We've not had any detail yet,
but the way you deal with that is by
allocating funds.
But the way you deal with that is by actually embedding local policing, not moving any further away from where people actually are. So to diagnose the problem is one thing, but I think to actually prescribe the wrong medicines could be a criminal offence. And I think what is... I'm not saying that the Home Secretary should be charged with a criminal offence by any means, but what I do know for a fact is that the people who actually wrote this white paper, they were mostly policy wonks. You know, from think tanks who are now in their Home Office and the bosses who drafted this. I can tell you now for a fact that the vast majority of the rank-and-file police officers in this country were not consulted in this.
Festus, what would you have said then to the Home Secretary if she came to you and said, look, we're putting together this white paper about, you know, the biggest reforms, you know, she called this the last great unreformed public service. This system was designed in the 60s.
That's sort of a hyperbole,
not
but anyway.
for purpose. But you know what I mean? That's the stall she set out. And she wanted ideas from you as to how to do it better. What would you have put on the table?
I would say to her, do not talk to any chief officer in this country about any reforms unless they come to you, first of all, with a solution for how they're going to fix the retention crisis we have in policing. Because even if you implement all the LFR, the live facial recognition technologies in the world, even if you implement all kinds of technologies, even if you merge forces, whatever you want to do.
Or you hear about AI taking officers away from desks, perhaps they're going to go back on the streets.
You still need police officers to do the job. And at the moment, we have got a crisis in Britain. I mean, the Metropolitan Police has got the worst retention rate, I think, of any police force in the country. They can't even recruit for life, no money. So the first thing she's got to do is to focus on recruitment and, more importantly, retention. Because if you don't fix the retention issue, all the tech in the world, all the amalgamation in the world, all the regionalisation and centralisation in the world will not fix the problem.
Yeah, and Martin, just a final word on that about policing numbers, because that comes up time and time again. It was sort of, I didn't see a lot on it in what I was reading from this white paper today, but there is clearly going to be a concern amongst the public going from, you know, community policing to these bigger regional hubs. The thought is perhaps there aren't going to be as many police officers on the street. Where are we in terms of recruitment and retention by the government?
She has said that there will be, by March, another 3,000 police officers, which may be a result of the AI taking over paperwork and doing those desk jobs.
Perhaps moving numbers around then.
She's promised 13,000 by the end of this Parliament. But one thing on that very subject, I mean, what struck me, this idea of police officers having to have a licence to practice.
Absolute nonsense.
What effect is that possibly going to have on recruitment, because it's another kind of continuous assessment at a time when, you know, we've only just had the introduction of more stringent vetting processes,
Correct.
re-vetting. There's low public confidence. You know, are people going to be deterred from signing up? And I'll tell you one other thing. A friend of mine at the Met Police said that there's evidence of people signing up now, particularly at the Met, who've come into the job thinking, I'm only going to do this for 5 years.
Yeah.
This is going to be an exciting job. It's going to be good on my CV.
Yes.
And they aren't people who are looking at policing as a long-term career, like, you know, which was the norm when young men and women followed their parents.
Well, listen, we've run out of time, but there is more detail to come on this, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that as it comes out. Martin Brunt, thank you, our crime commentator, and Festus Akinbusoye, former Police and Crime Commissioner of Bedfordshire Police. Really good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. As I said, more to come on this story. Thank you.